When you make a cartoon about a prehistoric family, you usually end up taking a few liberties with reality. From cavemen strength to Paleolithic physics, here are some things that only adults notice in the Croods. The environment the Croods reside in is stark and barren. It's a dusty wasteland occupied by feisty birds and a cat-owl hybrid with a caveman vendetta. Don't sweat it though, kiddos. Our ancestors are mighty and resilient. They can throw massive stones and run like the wind. It's a cartoon grab bag of Wile E. Coyote shenanigans. However, in the first few minutes after an outstretched Hall of Fame catch sends him sliding headfirst into a boulder, the family's patriarch, Grug, throws out a light-hearted quip that will have parents raising an eyebrow or two. After fighting tooth and nail for their breakfast, which is just one big egg, Grug ends up only getting a smidgen of a portion by the time the family has had their fill. His response?
Well, that's all right. I ate last week.
Contextually, the joke works and sets a fun tone. But given all their physical advantages, it's surprising that the Croods are able to maintain their hulkish physiques eating only one egg per week. They need to eat in order to survive, and that's made clear throughout the journey. Maybe it's the caveman DNA, because once we meet Guy, he's a bit leaner and not nearly as strong as any of the Croods. That's an interesting fact given that he has an easier time getting food and even introduces them to the concept of leftovers. The leader of the pack is the steadfast father figure, Grug, and he's done what every parent hopes to achieve. He's kept his children alive by instilling in them a perpetual fear of everything. Granted, it comes from a nurturing place. Considering we believe them to be the last caveman family and every other family around them has succumbed to the horrors of their world, it's reasonable that he chooses to lead this way. But is this almighty head of the family content in his role as Beefcake Supreme? Of course not. Any deviation from his plans causes him to become frantic. He's so overbearing that his wife Ugga has to physically put her hands on him and push him away at one point. Good thing there's some modicum of modern family roles in this Stone Age family, otherwise this adventure could have gotten dark. With their circumstances, there are unfortunate attributes that need to be overlooked for the sake of survival. Grug's incessant neediness is one of them. He needs his hand held through most of the film. When it comes time to sink or swim, we watch Grug sink to the bottom of a lake with all the melancholy a primitive mind can muster. Kids will think Grug is being a goofball. Adults will empathize with his plight, and everyone will feel like he's smothering them. The human vocal range unfortunately has its limits. We can only shout for so long, and our voices can only reach so far. Good thing our ancestors wrapped their lips around the husks of abandoned snail houses and discovered the booming might of the conch. It would appear the ancient founder of the first megaphone was none other than Guy. The conch shell is formed by aquatic snails and is mostly found near large water sources. To find one anywhere but the ocean is extremely rare, and usually means that an ancient waterway once existed there. And at the end of The Croods, our heroes all reach the ocean and venture onward into the next chapter of their story. The fact that this is their final destination in the film implies everyone had yet to reach the ocean before. So how is it they possess so many of these conch shells? Guy is handing them out like candy. Even the most inquisitive kid may be surprised at the surplus of conch shells that Guy has in his satchel when they're setting off into a labyrinth of tunnels. Guy may be an idea man, but he still seems naive enough to believe he can actually catch the sun. Chances are he hadn't spent a lot of his time alone out in a different ocean farming for conch shells. In the apparent final moments of Grug's time with his family, he sums up everything that he and his daughter Eep need to talk about beautifully. It's the most succinct the moment could possibly be, with the caveman pulling his daughter in for a hug. She then inquires as to the name of this new comforting invention. He declares that it will be called a hug.
Because it rhymes with Grug.
It's a misty-eyed moment that ends in a father telling his daughter he loves her. The kids have probably checked out on the mushy stuff at this point, but adults are probably asking how the heck there's a word for something as complex as love, but not something as straightforward as a hug. Cavemen are extremely literal, as displayed by Eep's innocent assumption that fire is alive because Guy said it was dying. The words they use are attached to actions and things: caves, rocks, run, smash, etc. It's cute to have a hug be introduced into their lexicon, thus displaying Grug's contribution and evolution, but anyone who's had their heart put through the ringer knows love is a drastically more complex word to process. It feels like a missed opportunity to build on the formula and bring in the Neanderthals' interpretation of the emotion. Maybe the film's creators felt like that would be too much mushy stuff. Anyone trying not to cry in front of their kids when the Croods all pay tribute to their fallen patriarch will agree. It's unlikely that children are keying in on metaphors when they're indulging in a visual blitz of colors and silliness, but adults may have a hard time not seeing cultural similarities between our world and the caveman world running through the Croods. It's all the more obvious with Nicolas Cage stepping in as the dad who won't change with the times. His dry, annoyed drawl helps the movie drive its point home, adapt or slip into a crack in the ground and melt into a river of magma. There's another character whose visual attributes also help make things apparent, and that's Guy, of course. The scrawny Idea Factory's representation of progress is visualized with a healthy dose of snark by his man bun. The hairstyle is a telltale sign of the liberal hipster, especially considering when the movie was released in 2013. Guy innocently posits a better approach to situations they have long dealt with, but he lacks the leadership that comes from years of fighting off predators with your fists. And it's not that Grug or Guy are wrong about their approaches, they're just different. If any parents are upset with the representation of either side, then they're looking at the entire film all wrong. After all, our heroes reach their new paradise by working together. Each of them grows in their own way, and learns an unfortunate lesson in the process. Mother-in-laws are immortal, and you best just get used to them. Anyone who's taken part in a Boy Scout camping trip and felt a primal rage bubble up from within while they spin sticks between kindling might have some major issues with the way the Croods deals with fire. Trying to master the strike of flint is an incredibly annoying endeavor, but evidently Guy doesn't have an issue sparking up some flames in a heartbeat in the middle of stressful situations. Heck, he can create a fire strong enough to withstand the wind gusts of thousands of carnivorous birds.
It comes from where you come from?
No, I make it.
Make some for me.
Child audiences are no doubt unaware of the woes of campfire construction, as camping often means electrical outlets and parking spaces nowadays. Those of us who endured the joy of camping in the middle of nowhere know how difficult the fire building process can be. We'll let it slide though. After all, it's more enjoyable to see how things pan out for the Croods instead of them getting mauled by the wave of flesh-eating birds. It also makes the family's introduction to Guy and the concept of fire a majestic experience. The zany Looney Tunes tomfoolery of the Croods injects the proper amount of innocence into what might otherwise be a boring tale about how even Nicolas Cage can change. However, the film begins to stretch it a bit far at points. It's a child's animated film, and we're trying not to nitpick, but right around the time Grug grabs the family and leaps off a cliff, most adults are spitting out their Chardonnay, completely flabbergasted that they all could survive a fall from the equivalent of a skyscraper rooftop. Well, it's a good thing that cavemen are immune to falls, apparently. Especially Gran, who can take quite a beating for an elderly woman in need of a walking cane. The first time we see the family hunt, the roles are decided by Gran being substituted for a quarter, and she's tossed into the air in a game of heads or tails. In any animated adventure, a few falls are expected, and they induce the necessary giggles. But the Crood stretches it to the point of incredulity. They fall a lot. The family members are launched into the sky by a whale geyser and land on their faces in a field. They fall into giant mazes after the ground decides to suddenly explode. They even get slingshotted into the air by trap mishaps. But every time they fall, they just get right back up, which is actually kind of a sweet message for kids. In the real world, it takes much longer than we'd like to teach a cute little puppy that the rug is not an appropriate place to drop off a fresh loaf. In other words, adults are all too aware of nature's primal indifference. Kids are spoiled by generations of species taming and most likely haven't been kicked by a mule while trying to get fresh milk for their fruity pebbles. So when the Croods amass a healthy collection of pet friends by the end of their journey, the little ones don't even bat an eyelash. According to our favorite cave-dwelling family unit, animals are shockingly easy to tame in the Paleolithic era. The Croods even gain a mount in the form of a different version of the hellish owlcat that was hunting them at the beginning of the film. But there's no explanation as to how they tame the beast. The implication is that animals come with a built-in pet setting. The only thing you need to do in order to flip that switch is to not run away screaming. When the walls of the Croods' little ravine suddenly come smashing together, they lose their cave, the only safe hideaway they've ever known. To the amazement of the family, though, just behind their cave walls is a vibrant jungle. All it took was tectonic calamity to expose them to a world that looks suspiciously like James Cameron's Avatar. Obviously, they aren't actually on the mystical moon of Pandora, but the environment is lush and colorful enough to make you think that a rich vein of unobtainium runs beneath the surface. Not to say animators took a page from the Cameron Bible, but the vivid colors all breathe a certain familiarity into the jungle. Kids respond to bright, colorful images, so we can't claim the market has been cornered on the color spectrum. But the creatures we come across exhaust don't help differentiate from the two worlds, like the flock of dual-winged birds flying over the beach in the final sequences. Giant rideable tigers and vibrant sentient flowers also help the Croods world feel reminiscent of Pandora. Most likely, it's just us jaded adults being unable to enjoy new things and connecting with Grug too much. After all, no one's got a monopoly on pretty colors. Still, if you squint, it's a little hard to tell the difference between the two films. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more Looper videos about your favorite movies are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.